Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us on the program The Buzz, your social media program on television. It's great to be here this Monday afternoon. Is the 22nd of July 2019. My name is Patience Bello Okafor. Always a pleasure indeed to be here at the table. And of course, joining me this Monday afternoon, Chief Godio Fose is ably represented here by himself.
I didn't say anything.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Patience. It's nice to be here.
How was your weekend?
It was a wonderful weekend.
Wow.
I enjoyed.
Great to know.
I slept well, and I think this week is going to be great.
Wow. I like the positive outlook. Anyways, Chief Ofose is a renowned journalist. He is also the immediate past president of the Brand Journalists Association of Nigeria, and is also a social and political analyst. Welcome again to the show. Also at the table, Mr. Peter Osangbi is here to occupy it on the show as usual. Good afternoon, Mr. Osangbi.
Good afternoon, Patience. Nice to be here again.
Great as always to have you here.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Peter Osangbi is a businessman. He's also a public relations expert, and he's a social political analyst. Welcome to the show.
At the weekend, it was...
Oh, wow.
Well, something positive, really.
Okay.
Because in my house there, in Egbeda, there has not been power failure since Friday evening.
Wow.
So I don't know what is going on. Maybe NEPA forgot to switch off.
So now you are scared. What the outcome would be?
Yeah, and what the bill will be actually.
No.
That's a typical Nigerian for
while Mr. Osangbe enjoyed uninterrupted power supply, since on Friday we have been deprived of power supply.
Oh,
so
wow.
we now relied on I passed my neighbor, you understand? So that's what we have been
Okay,
using
so while in some
area.
areas, you know, there was, in some areas, I mean, the absence of it. It's all good. Welcome again to the program, everyone. Of course, Akogo Ganikaya de Balogun cannot join us this afternoon due to circumstances beyond his control. Welcome to the show, viewers. 0802-836-8971 is the number to use to interact with us on the program this afternoon. All right, before we go into our discuss today, let's go quickly take a look at what to expect on the buzz today. Welcome back to the program. 0802-836-8971 is the number to use once again. We're starting with the criminal neglect of basic education. A study by the United Nations International Children's Education Fund, UNICEF, showed that Nigeria has an estimated 13.2 million children who are out of school. That number actually makes us the highest in the world. About 69% of the country's population. Actually, the Universal Basic Education Commission also announced in October 2018 that 13.2 million children were not in school as they should be, which sort of like correlates with the report by UNICEF. Now, despite these high numbers, some state governments have yet to take advantage of the billions of naira in counterpart funding provided by the federal government for free basic education. Now, according to information I have here, prior in the 6 years preceding President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, that's between the year 2009 and 2014, the federal government spent about 360 billion naira worth of intervention on basic education, covering textbooks, teacher professional development, construction of classrooms, library resources, amongst others. But if you take a look at the schools around you, I mean the government schools, you wonder, where did this 360 billion naira actually end up? Okay, to set the tone for our discussion this afternoon, let's go quickly see a video clip. We'll be back.
In the early 50s to late 80s, the standard of education in Nigeria was very high, especially the public school. Attending high school was like attending college. Iconic schools like College of the Immaculate Conception, CIC Enugu, King's College Lagos, CKC Onisha, Government College Ibadan, were ranked higher among the best secondary schools in the world. Today, educational system is no longer where it used to be. The system has declined. Infrastructure are in the state of disrepair. No school material and equipment. Not enough qualified teachers. Learning has become more difficult within public schools. Many of those who attained quality education from Nigerian public schools in the late 50s to 90s wouldn't want their children to go to the same public school that nurtured them to the path of success. They prefer to spend billions of dollars on education in other countries rather than investing in the Nigerian education system.
Patriotic songs ring out before the start of class at Adenkunle Anglican Primary School in Makoko, Lagos, Nigeria. It has one of the highest number of primary school students in Lagos, 1,059, but there are only 16 teachers, with an average of 66 students per class. The teacher-student ratio is just one of the problems facing the state government in delivering proper primary education to more than 500,000 students. Close to a quarter of Nigerian teachers lack adequate qualifications, and it's been difficult to attract Nigerians to the profession, as the salary can be as low as $133 per month. Infrastructure is also in trouble. A large number of Lagos State's more than 1,000 primary schools are dilapidated, lacking basic furniture, electricity and running water.
Welcome back to the program. All right, gentlemen, let's look at this issue of the criminal neglect of basic education. Now, free basic education, it's almost compulsory the world over. Right. It has to be free, and it must be compulsory. And according to that clip we just saw, at a time in Nigeria, it was so, where schools, you know, were seen as priority. If we cast our mind back, exactly where do you think we lost it?
I would actually like Peter to kickstart this, because by the virtue of his position working with the former Minister of State Education, as a special advisor on media and publications, it should have a basic understanding of how they work at that time, and what hindered them, and what they were able to do within that ministry, and especially on basic education, because that is the bane of where we are today. If we didn't get foundation right, there is no way university level can
obviously. So,
I think basically the government then acknowledged the fact that education was at the nadir, that is at the lowest level, basic education, and it was one of the reasons why the Jonathan administration decided to fund basic education. And in doing that, they created opportunity for counterpart funding, a situation where, just to encourage state governments to fund basic education, a situation whereby they provide certain funds, make certain funds available, and ask state governments to come and assess these funds on the basis that they pay their own counterpart funding. Rather than do that, what most governments decided to do was to make it a campaign issue, because federal government provided their own funds and of course started carrying out certain what's it called, activities. They will start claiming these projects, which is actually wrong in itself. It was done mostly in Imo State. But the point here is that the failure of state governments to now assess these funds has affected the development and the rejuvenation of basic education.
But why are these funds unaccessible?
No, they are easily accessible.
Okay.
The truth of the matter is, bring your own. It's counterpart funding. But they wouldn't bring theirs. Reason is that what they would have brought, the money they would have brought, have been diverted to some other things. Because in this case, federal government is not going to just allow you to now do it your own way. Because education is important to them. So state governments are not able to, because they don't have overall control. If they had overall control, they would be able to to now say, okay, fine, divert funds the way they normally do on other projects. So the inability to assess it is not because of the difficulty of assessing it, but because of their failure to actually provide their own counterpart funding. So that's basically what it is. It's a shame because at the end of the day, you expect the civil society to pick this up. You expect, serious, respectable voices in our societies to pick this up and raise it, because we've spent so much time concentrating on the top, on the federal government, attacking the federal government, forgetting that basic problems exist at both the local government and at the state government. And one of them is the poor funding of education. So you can imagine, since this has been made public, since this has been brought to the fore, there's no serious response to this. There's no, it's not a campaign issue. In a state where PDP is controlling, APC is not seen as an issue to, raise with PDP. In a state where APC is controlling, PDP is not seen it as an issue to raise before APC by way of attack. They all now relax, waiting for the next election. That is not democracy. That's not the way politics is done. There are fundamental issues facing us as a people, and one of them is this basic education.
Well said. All right.
I will dwell on how to actually reduce this number, this 13.2 million out of school children. You remember in my own state, during Akpabio's regime, he actually did a whole lot in terms of trying to encourage children to be in school. That in itself is not enough to encourage people to be in school. And school environment need to be conducive. They need to enjoy learning, because that's why people go to school. You need to enjoy learning. When one of the issues you read in your prologue is that there's complete lack of infrastructure in public schools, which is supposed to be the nest that take on this 13.2. Because if you look at this 13.2, there are children of very poor people in the society, very, very poor people in the society. So public schools supposed to be a platform in which they could be absorbed, these 13 points, or almost half of it, because there's no place, there's no country in the world that everyone is educated. Obviously, there's no country in the world. But how you managed to reduce the illiteracy level in your system could also help you. Now, you look at infrastructure, it's -1, because we don't have elected leaders who have education as their priority. You see people talking about a lot of things during campaign. We are going to create roads. We are going to invest in agriculture. We are going to do this. You rarely hear them talk about we are going to invest in basic primary education, which is the foundation for wherever Peter is here today, you and I. Because if we didn't have that opportunity, as I'm talking to you now, the primary school that I attended, Good School Upata, is not in existence today. Now, if somebody asks me to go to my primary school in my local village, I don't have a primary school anymore. Thank goodness I was able to get my first school living certificate. Do you understand? Now, all of these things, you have teachers posted to that school because it was far away from it now. They refused to go. And all the buildings that they used to have in those days, when we were going to primary school, that teachers were living in the school premises are no more. So schooling environment has become so harsh for children they prefer to be on the street arguing for their mother, making a living for their mother, than to go to school and come back home hungry.
But there are laws, you know, laws, for instance, section 2.2 of the law, which stipulates every parent should ensure his child or ward attends and completes, you know, primary education. At least you should see your child through school up till JSS3. That's what the law says. Yet you see these children roaming on the street. Nobody is implementing this law.
This law, it goes back to what is happening even with the security. You see, the moment the child of a prominent man is not in school, or says, I want to go to public school, I don't want to go to private school, the state of public school will change forever. Do you understand? Okay. Now, when you talk about law, we have so many laws in Nigeria. Which one are we actually obeying? Which one are we actually implementing or executing? Now, you arrest a child, or you took that child to the parent, and by the time the police get to the house, they find out that the mother is hungry, can barely muster, because all of these things that they say public school is free, it's not free. They are still extorting people from that level, and these women cannot afford it. I'm not making a case for allowing children to be out of school, but what I'm trying to tell you that these are the things that you cannot. If government want to enforce this law, they know what to do. They need to reduce poverty rates.
Yeah, but in addition to that as well, and that was one of the things that the previous administration did, which sadly has been upturned now by the Muhammadu Buhari-led administration, and that was the establishment of the Nigerian schools. You know, because whether we like it or not, education is key. And the Emir of Kano, Sanusi, had warned that lack of education in the north, you know, has, you know, consequences, and that's one of the things they are attacking him for. Point is that when you deny a child, you know, education, you are denying the future generation, you know, of opportunities to develop along the same line as their contemporaries in other places. And so when the Jonathan administration established that Amajiri school, it was in recognition of the fact that the Fulanis are people who are nomadic. They are always on the move. They don't have a particular, you know, and then to take them away from, you know, from the streets, so that they will stop begging and then give them education and properly funded. Schools were built, you know, and actually funded. Right. Now, what has happened with that upturning of policy? Because when the government comes in, they just change policy, and that has affected us as a people. So by changing that, monies have been lost. The present government has not been able to tell us what alternative they have for the said Amajiris.
It was a roga.
All right.
So it's back to square one.
Back to square one.
But I need to ask, you know, in the past, in the not too distant past, people used to take pride in attending schools in Nigeria. In fact, some of the biggest names in Nigeria went to all these public schools. But these days, the reverse is the case. Over the weekend, I mean, this one actually sparked this topic. Over the weekend, you know, there was an opera online because children of some elite in the country, you know, were shown on social media graduating from schools abroad, you know. So this sparked an online debate. People were vexed as to the, you know, the deficit in our own school system, and then the rich having to take their own children out of that system to a better system abroad. How about those of us that are stuck in that system? But where did we actually lose it, where we lost all the value, all the respect for Nigerian schools?
No, it's us that are losing that respect. I have, like I said, you know, sometime in this program, I've had the benefit of studying both in Nigeria and in England. And I'm always proud of my background. I attended the Godala Primary School, Benin City, a public school. I attended Immaculate Conception College, Benin City. I schooled in Ekboma, Edo State University, now I'm Bruce Ali University. And when I went to do a postgraduate in England, it didn't shake me, it didn't undermine me, you understand? It didn't make any difference. And in my postgraduate class, we had people from all parts of the world that came. Well, I do not want to say how we all fared, because it will not be a matter of one blowing his trumpet. But the truth of the matter is that the Nigerian educational system is not actually as bad as, you know, we think. With a little more funding,
tweaking here,
yes, a little more funding, we'll all, you know, enjoy as much as, you know, they have there. What is happening now is a status thing, you know, that, you know, your children are studying abroad. That's one. Then two is that because, you know, there is no strike. So if you are going for a 4-year program, you know, undergraduate program is 4 years, it's 4 years. Now, the response, you know, and that's one of the mistakes that the Obasanjo administration made. The response by government is to give licenses to private universities to start functioning in Nigeria. Because you know that if you go to private universities in Nigeria, if your program is 4 years, it's 4 years. No strike, no ASU strike, no nothing. You're graduating, and that is it. So, but the earlier we begin to, you know, show serious interest, it's not a matter of even ensuring that the politicians, that their children school in Nigeria, it doesn't make any difference. Whether their children have been schooling abroad before, it's just because of the cry of poor funding of education in Nigeria that we are exposing these things that their children are studying abroad. So, but the way forward, the way to go is to properly fund education, and in funding education, to properly follow seriously to ensure that funds are actually spent as they are supposed to be.
Okay.
Now you provide money for lecturers for research, grants for research. How we sure that
let us not go
to money gets to the lecturers.
Let us not go to the university level. Let us stay at the basic
elementary.
Yeah, because the foundation that you lay will give fruit to whatever you plant on it. Do you understand? Now, if you look at those who cry foul on Twitter, social media, we are all part of it. Patient, you are a part of it. God your Father is responsible for it. Peter is part of it, because none of our children seated on this table, as poor as we may think we are, attends public school in Nigeria. Now, if you climb to the position of the minister, obviously the mentality is that you are going to take your children out, because within your very limited resources, you still squeeze it. Do you know that some primary school, basic primary school, nursing school in Ikeja, they are paying 200,000 naira, and people are very comfortable enough to pay that money.
Yeah.
Now, there is Oregun Primary Secondary School on Agedingbi Road. That building was built by Tinubu. It was revamped. What stopped us from taking our children there?
I get your line of thought.
And begin to demand. Because if you are not within, if you are not inside, you cannot fight it. And begin to demand that these things should be done. As long as our children are in private school, all of us are participatory of the fact that the basic primary education is suffering what is suffering today. Because there is no good voice to speak for it. Because those who are supposed to speak for it, their children are somewhere.
Yeah, but they will say that they provided you.
Do you understand?
They provided you choice.
Point.
Yes.
It's choice.
Yes.
It's choice. It's a free economy.
Listen,
it's choice.
See, Peter, if we need to do something about it,
you know, to a certain degree,
we don't even need a private primary school.
I agree with you.
A private nursery school.
To a certain extent.
In this country.
But you cannot completely put the blame on the parents, because what caliber of teachers do you have left in the public schools? Let's start from there. From the report we just saw, we saw how many thousands of students and only 16 teachers. One teacher to over 100 children.
Can I correct you something?
What is the quality of education they're going to get from there?
Let me objection to that, please. Let me tell you one thing about this school.
Go ahead.
You see, this year, as bad as this year is, next year will be worse than this year. That has always been our optimism from the day one. When I was born, 1974 was better than 1975 that I was born. 1976, 1975 was 1975.
This guy is a small boy.
1975 was better than 1976. No, it has always been like that.
Okay.
Perhaps my father knows this kind of intention.
All right. So what's your point?
My point is that we have to sit down. Me, God, you say Peter Osangwe, patient. Tell your husband, let us begin to campaign that people at our level take their children to public school and begin to.
Have you recently been to a public school?
I just told you that the primary school I attended is no longer in existence.
Okay, so where are the schools?
Wait.
No, first take your children there. I wish you all the best.
Lead by example.
Yeah, lead by example. Okay. I'm not going to take my children there. My children will not forgive me.
Let's read a bit of comments from the viewers. Bello SA from Lagos says, I attended St. Paul Anglican Primary School, Idioro, Mushin from 1967. Wow. The state government are not helping we poor people, coupled with the contractors who are giving contracts to supply chairs and tables. They're supplying substandard items. In those days, commissioners do visit schools. State government need to wake up. Okay, this one, Peter from Ogba says, our leaders don't believe in the education system we are being given, hence the neglect. Even one of Professor Sibajo's children did his graduation abroad this month. So how can he improve the system? Please note, Jakonde's children attended public schools. Our leaders should lead by example. Just like we're telling Mr. Ofose here, to lead by example.
Start, we'll follow you.
Frank from Ikeja says, if the head is not academically inclined, what do you expect?
I don't know what he talks about. However, I think that some of the policies we have in this country is also a problem to growth. Now, we wake up one day and expunge TTC. I don't know whether you understand
very well, yeah.
Now, TTC was an institute
where
they train teachers who are teaching primary school.
Yes.
I think they used to call that sandwich program.
No, it was TTC.
Which one was the sandwich program?
That one is a part-time
program. So today, we don't have an institution that is dedicated to producing teachers that will cater for that
qualitative teachers. Now, you know, as much as we want to talk about this education thing, do we realize that it is a cartel?
That is why I'm talking.
Let me take our minds back to how this issue of private schools began to flourish. People who were supposed to be monitoring or supervising public schools themselves established private schools. And deliberately left the public schools to rot so that their business could boom. So where do we begin from when even the people who should correct it, are adding to the trouble? The problem is not with me for taking my children to a private school. I want the best for my children. I'll do that.
Listen.
But if I have a public school that I'm sure will give my children the kind of education I got or even better, why not?
My father regretted before he died that if he had known, he would have left his job as a principal of a secondary school and set up a private school.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was more profitable to start a school than to head a government school.
Right.
Now, if we begin to encourage teachers to stay on their job, federal government, do you understand? There will be no need, all right, for quality teachers to move from the public to private, because that is what is happening. That's what is happening now. Now the private are going to public schools and poaching these people and giving them better wages than what the government is giving them. Let us at first cancel the private school licenses from basic education.
Okay.
That means that from primary school, Peter, wait, because we have to solve this problem. In the next 5 years, this 13.2 million may climb to 17.2.
Definitely.
Now, where are we going to? Where is the number coming from? Up north. The huge number comes from up north. Do you understand?
Yes.
Now, and that is why, like Peter said, former President Jonathan wanted to solve that problem.
Okay.
And in that, if you look at that time, the number actually came down because the government created an environment where those people were they admired more than going to the street to beg under the scorching sun.
Okay, let's look at more feedbacks. Christy, I have to read this one. This one is coming from Christy. The people calling the line. Christy says, I'm 17. The government should do something about poor children who are school dropouts. I'm also a dropout, a school dropout. Some of the school dropouts are hawking in the streets. Some are kidnapped and raped. Some commit murder, and some are forced into prostitution. I know several rich people that I have met and asked them to help me and the poor orphans, but they push us aside. We, the poor orphans, are begging the government to do something and help us get back to school. Even the children in all 36 states that are school dropouts, the government should consider the less privileged. And she went on to say, I collected someone's phone to send this message. You know, this kind of thing breaks your heart, where the children want to go to school.
After the program, send my number to that line. Let her call me.
Okay. All right, this one coming in from Ojodu Faith Eme say, question. I think that a large number of people in the country actually want to be associated with schools with high standards or names rather than public schools.
Not necessarily. You want to have quality education, and then the perception is that you cannot actually get it, you know, in under schools. The video clips that you saw, there's no child that's going to learn under that, in that kind of classroom. Environment. Do you understand? Exactly. So how is your thought process going to, you know, turn out?
Another thing is that I also attended Methodist Boys School around. And if you go to the same school that I attended and I left in 1994, you will be shocked the state of that school right now. And nobody wants to identify with it, because another policy somersault that we had was to actually hand over our schools to religious organizations back.
Yeah.
He has created, because the Methodists that you know pre-colonial era is not the Methodists that we have now. That Methodist was run by the British, who are focused and wanted to develop education in Nigeria. But this Methodist that we have today is more concerned about money. Okay. It's more concerned about other things.
All right. Because of our time, we have to move on to another topic. But to round off this particular topic, Bright from Ikorodu says the public schools will be revamped when government begins to live up to their responsibility. All right, now let's discuss the task of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. I think this is actually intertwined, you know, with the whole thing, because it's all poverty. Anyways, President Muhammadu Buhari says his government can move 100 million Nigerians out of poverty within 10 years. He said databases of poor and vulnerable Nigerians, as well as that of unemployed youths, were being developed by the federal government to address the problem of socio-economic inequality in the society. According to him, this task is attainable. China has done it, India has done it, Indonesia has done it, Nigeria can do it. These are all countries characterized by huge burdens of population. With leadership and a sense of purpose, we can lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty.
How?
In 10 years.
How?
That's a big question.
Yeah, how? He has not told us how. You're talking about database and all that. He has not told us how. Now, here is a government that, as we speak, has not appointed ministers. How is he going to do it? Is he going to do it alone? No. His actions have not shown any sign of seriousness at all. Where are the technocrats that will help you in coming up with policies that will help lift, you know, millions of Nigerians out of poverty? I don't see that. The only strategy they had, which was, you know, politically based, was to go and start sharing 10,000 naira in the market. Do you understand? And some of us had issues with that. Mr. President should be telling us, not we will. He is the president. He's done one term, 4 years. He has the mandate to do another 4 years. So it is not, the statement shouldn't be we will. The statement should be how we are going to get them out. We want to hear and even debate it before he now begins to embark on it. He has not come up with any serious policy.
Okay.
So as far as I'm concerned, this is a waste of time. This is another, you know, rhetorics, you know, the normal thing that you just say. But let the president be reminded that the election is not on. There's no campaign now. So all these stories that we will take millions of Nigerians out of poverty, say no to poverty, all those electioneering slogans, that's not what we want. Now we want action, and the president is not telling us what he wants.
Okay, Mr. Fosse.
Let me start with, I actually bought a newspaper this morning. I read the back page of Henry Boyo. He's a renowned economist, and there's something he said. And I think what Mr. President said is not far from the CBN plan, because it looks like CBN is now the core of this government plan to revamp the economy. He said CBN 5 years plan, chasing shadows with a charm audience. Now, where am I going to? I use the word charm audience because we love to allow ourselves to be controlled by emotions. What are the emotions? Sadness, sad, joy, okay, other things. You can cry. Those are the emotions that come with it. Now, you will love in Nigeria, political followers actually love the political figure than what they want to do. When I first read that Mr. President said the government has the capacity to lift 100 million people out of poverty in 10 years, I was excited until I saw 10 years. Do you know why I see 10 years? Because Mr. President is not going to serve in the next 10 years. You understand? He's going to end with 4. Now, 6 years else will go to another person. That may overturn everything that he has overturned, like he did overturn the Amajiri school. You might overturn it. Now, where am I going to? Mr. President, I love mathematics. Before you get a result, you must have a formula. Mr. President, like Peter said, has not told us this is how we are going to do this.
To arrive at...
Now,
okay.
Anybody, the dumbest person in the world can come up and tell you that I can run Nigeria successfully. But how? 10 million people out of poverty means that Nigeria is in Eldorado. If Mr. President can do this in these 4 years, if Mr. President can do 1/4, if he can take 1/4 of the people that he has mentioned, 10 million people out of poverty, we are going somewhere.
But is it doable?
It is not with
China did do it.
Stop those references.
Is it doable?
That's I'm worried. We're tired of all those. It happened in India. It happened in China. It happened in Asaba. We're not interested in that.
Are you trying to say Nigeria's case is a lost case?
Well, no, it's not.
Okay.
We should start talking specifics. Mr. President should immediately set up. The economy is so important. He should immediately set up his cabinet, immediately get an economic team that would take us out of the woods. At the moment, you know, the investment climate is not, there's no confidence in it. All right? Mr. President has not been able to inspire confidence. So how are you going to
that is
get,
what?
yeah, how are you going to now get all these, 10 million people out of poverty? How? Don't you get it? Who is going to do that? Looking at him, does he inspire confidence? I'm afraid he doesn't inspire no confidence as a person. All right? So by now, he should have assembled a team. What Jonathan did was to get a coordinating minister of economy. When Obasanjo came, Obasanjo had a strong economic team. When Yar'Adua came, so at each point in time, you see them getting, so the quality of people you get is going to lead to the quality of programs that you will get. So if he's telling us that this program that I have on ground is going to lift Nigeria out of poverty in the next 10 years, then I will listen. Now there's nothing on ground to show me.
Mr. President,
don't you get it?
I do.
Mr. President, point to the fact that those countries that they mentioned, China, India, Indonesia, are those who also have a population problem. What he has also failed to say is that those guys turn their population into advantage rather than disadvantage. Like in Nigeria, like we have today.
All right, let's take a break. Let's go and look at something on poverty quickly. We'll be back. Thanks for joining us again. You're still watching the Buzz Mondays edition. All right, we're still looking at the task of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. So says the President Muhammadu Buhari. All right, Andy Ogo is commenting here, and he says, how can public schools flourish when incessant strikes, non-payment of teachers' salaries? How do you expect standard when the education minister is not an educationist? That one is coming from Andy Ogo. All right, this one says, private schools are businesses. All right, this other one says, school na scam. I beg. I mean, he's just echoing the mindset of a lot of youths in Nigeria today, not believing anymore that education, is the way to go.
We are here to discountenance some of those myths. It's not true. You could look at some of the people that have gone to school. Don't look at those who have gone to school and they seem to have lived a good life. Look at those who have gone to school and also live a good life and compare both. You will know that the one that has gone to school, that actually acquired education, okay, is better managed than the one that doesn't.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Okay.
So again, it goes to show that government needs to do something fast, because all of these things, the buck stop at their table. Policies, Obasanjo came, and today the number of private universities are actually competing with the public, I guess.
Exactly.
Now, in the next 10 years, you may hardly see someone in public university except from the poor of the poorest.
Okay. All right, Mr. Sangbe.
Yeah, I agree with what he said. One of the greatest disservice which Obasanjo, as great as he did to Nigeria, is the proliferation of universities. He gave them licenses. Now, whether there are oversights in terms of monitoring these universities, we do not know. If you check from, from here to Shagamu, you have about 8 universities, left, right, from Baga to Shagamu. So you can imagine that I can safely say that we have about 300 to 350 private universities in this country. The quality of what they are impacting, we do not know. But in all of this, the federal universities appear to be, to have some credibility. They are still being funded. There are some states that have 2 universities, like Edo State and all that. Where they are going to get money to fund those universities, we do not know. The earlier we begin to reduce the emphasis on some of these private, like he was trying to say in public, in primary school, the better, so that we can get quality education.
Wow, quality education. Isn't education supposed to be the bedrock, of any developing country, really? I don't know why we are not putting so much emphasis or importance on education. The problem starting from even the budgetary allocation, I mean, it shows
also let the politicians begin to look at merit. See, there are some certain things that inspire people. All right, when you begin to bring people that never attended schools, that bought certificate, that cut corners in school, you elevate them to the highest level in government. What are you supposed to do? What message are you sending to the people?
I get that. All right, our time is fantastically up. Thank you so much, gentlemen. All right, the Lagos and the burden of waste recycling will be shifted till tomorrow because we don't have time.
But I thought that with the coming of Sanwo-Olu, because one of the major problems that the former government had.